I think it's so important for women to understand that you can be a mom and you can do something that you love too, right? It's like that and is so important because I think that sometimes we think like, okay, well, how can I do that? It's like, listen, that can look all sorts of ways. You can still be an incredible mom and you can also, live your passion and be able to do those things that you maybe are like, oh, I'd love to do this. You can do both.
Hello, and welcome to our next episode of Uplift for Her. I'm your host, Mallory Craycroft, and I am so excited for our guest today. We have with us Krista Parry. Hi, Krista. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I am too. Krista and I have spoken a few times outside of this, and I feel like we should have recorded every conversation we've had, but I'm really excited to see where this one is going to go. When I invited Krista to come, I wanted her to come speak on one of our main wellness pillars, which is intellectual wellness. So the idea with intellectual wellness, which sounds very boring and not very important, but intellectual wellness is a core part of who we are, especially as women, and how if we are neglecting that big pillar, that we can feel a lot of dissatisfaction in our lives. So I'm going to define how kind of I think of intellectual wellness, and then will you share how you see it too? So when I think of intellectual wellness, I think of just everything that's coming into our brains. So the books we read, the radio shows we listen to, the podcasts we listen to, the social media and Instagram and Facebook, and also the articles that we read. I think it also includes our career and our skill set, that we want to develop a skill set to use that career. And then also creativity, like how are we using our brains to exercise that other half of us that's not just learn, but also create and bring part of ourselves to the world. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think that that's such a great description. I think a lot of it also is like our thoughts, right?
Yes.
All of these things that we ingest are actually the things that are then creating our thoughts and
huge.
Our beliefs around ourselves and also like the world around us. And so when you think about it, I love that you talked about like whether it's our jobs or whether it's, there's so much of that a lot of our beliefs around that are actually whether it's conditioning from what we've been reading or whether it's just the stuff that we've surrounded ourselves with are going to make us think about, oh, okay, maybe I think that this is how I need to behave, or this is what my role needs to be. And I think that all of that information that we ingest, right, and so that's why I think we have to be so careful about the things that we're doing, because that truly is what I think intellectual wellness is literally, like you said, the core pillar.
Yeah.
Because we can do all these other things from a wellness standpoint, but if we're not making sure that the things that we're intaking and those thoughts and those books and those people and those accounts that we're following are not in line and aligned with who we are, it can totally throw our wellness.
Yes.
Out.
Oh, you just said it so perfectly. And I think we can all think of examples of that, on social media where you do get sucked in and you're suddenly consuming all of this information. And I've had that where I have to like shake myself and be like, wait, why am I reading this? Like I just spent all this time reading this like post, and I get sucked in sometimes to the comment battles,
Yes.
And you're like, wait, why am I bringing this into my life? Like I have no desire to really consume this. And yet here I am doing that.
Yeah. And I think that's so common, right? Because it is just, you think like, oh, let's just see what other people are doing, right? And what we forget is that oftentimes what people are putting on social media are their highlight reels, right? Oftentimes people are not posting those really hard times or those hardships. And so we get sucked into it. And the funny thing is that it may not even be reality. And quite honestly, probably 90% of the time, it's not reality or it's not the full story.
Yeah. Well, Krista, will you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you have had such a life, such a journey. And I'm so excited for our listeners to hear more about it because I think you are so qualified to talk about this. I think especially a lot of my listeners are moms who kind of struggle with that tension between stay-at-home mom versus career and this part of myself and this other part of myself. So tell us about yourself and a little bit about your journey with, from a broad lens of intellectual wellness, but just about yourself.
I was very fortunate in the sense that when I was 20 years old, I'm one of those people who always have had to create my own path. So I just did. But when I was 20 years old, I knew that I wanted to work for the Olympics. And so I called up the Olympic committee and said, hey, I'd love to work for you. It's the 2002 Olympics. And they were like, what are you talking about? And so I actually started working for the PR firm who managed the 2002 Olympics. And I was fortunate to work with them. I withdrew from my senior year of college to go travel as a spokesperson for the 2002 Olympic
That's amazing.
torture, which is crazy, right? I'm like, how was I 20 years old and doing this? But it was just like, hey, when opportunity arises, I always just took that.
Yeah.
So when when the Olympics ended, I actually got another opportunity to, I went back, finished school, and then I was started working at Park City Mountain Resort. So a ski resort, I was the marketing director. And somehow I always had this inner confidence to know that like, even when you don't believe in yourself, you have to put yourself out there. You have to fake it until you make it, right? That's kind of been my whole motto in life is fake it until you make it. And so when I was 23, the marketing director at Park City had quit. Again, I was 23 years old, didn't have much experience, but I threw my hat in the ring. It was like, listen, I don't know much about marketing, but I do know how to build relationships. I do know communications. And so at the age of 23, I was named the director of marketing at Park City Mountain Resort.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you know, again, it was like one of these things where I just knew that like, I can do anything, right? Even though I don't have the skills, I'm just going to fake it until I make it. And so, so basically for like 15 years, I was the primary breadwinner. My husband, he's always been so supportive of me. I was traveling at a time because I went from Park City. I launched a big division for Powder Corp, which is the parent company. And I was traveling 6,000 miles a month. I'd get on a plane on Sunday night, take a red eye so I could tuck my kids into bed. And I would fly home Friday night. So I would be gone from Sunday to Friday. And it was a really hard life to live, but I felt like I was, you know, big and successful and all these things that like the external world tell us that we should be until it got too much. You know, my kids were wondering who their mom was. They thought, you know, our nanny, I remember my sweet son, I'll always remember he's 6 years old and I can still see hear the conversation. We were driving home. I was getting off on 6200 South in Salt Lake City, off on our road. And my sweet little baby in the back, he was 6 at the time. He looked at me, he's like, Mommy? I was like, yeah, honey. He's like, are you my mom? Oh. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? Like, yeah, honey, I'm your mom. But what's so great is that like our nanny's your mom too, but you probably don't even realize I'm your mom because I'm never home. I see you 36 hours a week, you know, that's it. And you're sleeping for part of that. And I think that was a big kind of turning, like for me, I started to think like, okay, what is this all for?
Yeah.
You know, it's great that I've been able to do all this, that I've been able to like, I've had a supportive husband, that I've been able to travel and accomplish my dreams and, you know, be like one of the only female executives in the ski industry. But for what? And so I literally quit. A week later, I had 5 seconds of courage. And it was really scary because we didn't have any, you know, it's not like I knew what I was going to do.
You didn't map this all out.
Didn't map it all out. It was just like, I can't do this anymore. And so I quit and I've never looked back.
Yeah. This is amazing. And I know there's more to your story about what you're doing now, and we'll come back to that later. I love what you said. I just think there's this tension, an appropriate tension between who we are and what we want to do and what other people tell us that we should do. And so much of our drama or inner turmoil comes from us feeling like we are not doing what we're supposed to do. But it's such a messed up system, isn't it? Because us doing what someone else tells us we should do doesn't usually bring us any extra joy or satisfaction or fulfillment of our best self. You know, it's only like checking someone else's boxes. Yes. So instead, if we can figure out what's right for me and do that, then that can bring us that fulfillment. And, you know, you did that several different times and you went through iterations of saying, here's what I feel drawn to right now. And then when it didn't feel right, then you changed it. And then you did something else and then you changed it. And we can do that. You know, we are wise and complex and capable human beings that can sort of pay attention to our inner, you know, workings and our thoughts and our desires of who we want to be and what we want to accomplish in life and follow that path. And it can be a windy journey. It doesn't have to be this straight shot. Mine was much more of a straight shot of I'm going to be a doctor and then here I am. Wow. But mine's starting to wind a little bit now as I'm trying to do the same thing of find what really makes me tick and how can I offer my very best self, this unique version of me. I've accumulated all this information, all this life experience, and how can I package that out and offer that to my family and the world and the universe in a way that is sort of a collective raising up?
I have always believed, I have the saying that if you don't do you, you don't get done and the world misses out.
Yes.
Like if we are not doing what we know to be true, because I also think we all have this inner knowing, and like we know what's to be true, but oftentimes, like you said, right, there can be these other voices that we hear of like, oh, okay, I know that I should probably do this, but the world's telling me that I should stay being a doctor because it's the safe thing. Like, Mallory, you've put so much time and effort into this. Don't do these other things. But it's like, if we don't listen to that inner knowing, right? If you didn't start to listen to that, we probably wouldn't be here talking on your podcast, right? And you're helping so many people. And I think it's like, so often we think we have to stick to this one path, and you're absolutely right. Like, listen, life changes, right?
Yeah.
Always. And that's the only thing that's constant, right? Is change.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, like, you know, listen, women, we have so much to offer, and we all need to bond together in order to build these networks, right? There's this term of the old boys club, right? The old boys club has been around for a long time. They're golfing, they're skiing, they're out there, they're connecting. We're all in this together. Yeah. And we need all of us in all the spaces.
Yes.
And for those who believe, right, I have a baby sister who her whole like dream has been to be an incredible stay-at-home mom. Yeah. She's raising 5 incredible kids. And I always say to her, I'm like, I am so glad that was not my path. That is your path. And I love that you love that. And she always is like, and I'm so glad that being like the working executive was never the path that I wanted. Yeah. But that you're able to feel that, like, we need all of us, and we need all of us to support each other.
I agree.
I think the biggest, and one thing I just want to comment is that I think it's so important for women to understand that you can be a mom and you can do something that you love too, right? It's like that and is so important, because I think that sometimes we think like, okay, well, how can I do that? It's like, listen, that can look all sorts of ways. You can still be an incredible mom, and you can also, you know, live your passion and be able to do those things that you maybe are like, oh, I'd love to do this. Yeah. You can do both.
And I think the message that I would want to send is to make it personal, you know, to look at it for yourself, because if you're not curious about it, then you won't see those opportunities. You'll just see, this is my job. This is my role right now. And that's fine. But if you can be curious about it, then you can look for opportunities. And maybe for right now, with a mom of little kids, maybe that means she follows her art passion by sketching on the side, you know, or maybe it means she goes to school and becomes a graphic designer. Like, it can mean so many different things, and it should be different for every individual. But if we're not curious about it, if we don't even invite those opportunities, then you don't know what opportunities you might be missing.
Yeah. I think that there's so many women who just kind of shut that off.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's the most tragic part. Yes. Is I have talked to so many women who are like, well, I don't even know what I'm good at. And it's because we've shut that off. And I always ask them this question. I always say, what did you love to do when you were a kid? Yeah. What did you love to do when you were a kid? Was that drawing? Was that, you know, I love to pretend like I was making candy rocks and I'd sell them on, you know, I was always like entrepreneurial and always trying to sell things. I'm like, think back to what you loved to do when you were a kid, because oftentimes that's when we were maybe free of the outside's like projections of what we should be, what we should be doing. So when we're kids, we actually, that's when we get to be probably our most free that we ever want to be.
So that was actually my next question. And so tell me if you have anything to add to that, is if you have a woman who's feeling stuck, and it could be because she's a stay-at-home mom home with her kids, but it could be like me, like I've been in the same career for 10 years and feeling like I have something inside me that is trying to get out. Like I have something to offer and I can't figure it out. What advice would you have for a woman who just feels like, oh, that itch, like there is something in me. I have a skill set. I have a knowledge set that needs out. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say take your 5 seconds of courage and just try. I think oftentimes the reasons why we don't do anything is because we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of like, but what if it doesn't work? But what if this? What if that? Yeah. Like none of that matters. Yeah. You know what? Like, yeah, we might fail. Yeah. Would you ever want to teach your kids to not try new things because they might fail? Like, no. So listen to probably what you're saying to your kids and think about that for yourselves. Like just try. And it might fail. And it may mean that like, oh no, that's not actually what I want to do. And then you try something new. And then you try something new. Like you just have to try.
I love that. And I think separating out those fears, because it's so easy to say, you know, I think if I would have listened to this podcast episode 2 years ago, I would have been like, well, that's easy for you to say. Totally. But for me, it's different. Yeah. I can't do that. You know, my family really needs me to be doing this way. And, you know, if you close that down, then maybe you're right. Yeah. Maybe there is nothing there.
And let me tell you, it is hard. Like I literally was a primary breadwinner, right? Yeah. I was making a lot of money. When you're one of the top executives in a big company, you make a lot of money. You get cars, you know, I didn't pay for a car in 12 years. When I decided to jump because I could no longer, I was like, I can't do this. I'm not living the life that I know I'm supposed to be living. I'm not putting into the universe, like my best self, I'm not putting that into the universe. I knew I was leaving that. And it is a very privileged, I will say also, like, I'm going to caveat this all with like, this is a very privileged way for me to be able to, right? For me to be able to jump and leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was scary.
You didn't have zero in your bank account.
That's exactly right. Right. I didn't have zero. And I was just like, okay, we're going to do this. I remember calling my husband, like, I just quit. And I was like sobbing, like, what did I just do? Because that was so scary. You know, I'm so glad I had that 5 seconds of courage, because I think if I hadn't done it at that point, I probably wouldn't have done it. But like, if I didn't do that, I would never be where I am now. And so it can feel really scary in the moment. And you typically probably don't know. You know, I would say probably if you can map it out, probably a better way to do it, right? Versus being me, who just is like, I'm out, I'm done. I was lucky in the sense that I was the longest running employee. I mean, I'd worked for them for 17 years. So they actually gave me paid leave. They thought I was just tired and burned out. It's like, okay, just take some time off. So I took their paid leave to then be like, yeah, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm not coming back. But I would just say, trust yourself. Like, the biggest thing, and I think that this goes back to everything, we get so far off of like trusting ourselves, right? I think that it's all these messages that we get starting probably when we're teenagers, you know, and people telling us like, oh, you can't be that. Mallory, you can't be a doctor. I mean, I'm sure you probably heard that from people who were like, you're going to be a doctor. Like, you can't be a doctor. You
Mostly
can't do
for
this.
myself. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And it's like all these things that we start believing are like keeping us from like who we really are, who we really want to be. So just like trust yourself and then have the courage, you know, the courage to fail, the courage to do something new. And again, it may not work out. You know, my iteration of like, so I quit 5.5 years ago, and my path has been very windy, and yet I'm like happier than I've ever been. And I think that's the key, is like, you're not going to figure it out right away. Yeah. You know, it's going to take a journey to figure out where it is that you want to be, whether it's, you know, again, like doing, giving yourself, learning about something. Like, there's so many different ways that you can test the waters too, without really having like so much risk in it. You know, it's like that risk reward.
Yeah. I think another thing I hear from a lot of people a lot is like, I just think that's so selfish. Like, that's just so selfish to say like, well, what do I want out of life? And how do you find that balance between it being selfish? For me, I don't feel like it's selfish at all. And in fact, I think that you hiding your best self can be perceived as selfish, because the world needs, I'm trying not to use any too aggressive language here.
You
but
probably need to use aggressive language.
The world freaking needs you. You know, like we need you to be your best self. Like, we need women to stand up and be the best teacher they can be, and be the best mom they can be, and be the best corporate executive they can be. We do not need more women feeling bad about themselves. We need women who are standing up and saying like, I have this much to offer, and dang it, I'm going to do it. I am going to offer it. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do it. And so for me, that seems, when people say like, oh, that's so selfish, it's just like, no, you're thinking small.
That is the key to a happy society. Literally, like, I think that this is the key to like all of the distraught and everything that we have in our world right now. I think that if women were given the permission, both from themselves as well as from because it does create support systems around you. Right. If women were given permission, I think that our society would be in such a better place, because we wouldn't have, when women are whole, they don't feel the need to be looking around at everybody else and judging them or feeling bad or any of those things. We have happier kids. Yeah. We have, you know, kids who hopefully aren't going to be bullies because they feel whole. So much of what we do and the work that we do on ourselves gets projected out into the world. Yeah. And we forget that. Yes. You know, absolutely. It's like, if we are happy and whole, the world around us will be happy and whole. End of story.
Yes. I think that's so true. And I want to be clear from my perspective. When I talk to women in my wellness coaching or patients, like, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you're a stay-at-home mom. I don't care. But what I really want to see is that you are being true to yourself, that you are open to your skill set and to your passions and to your knowledge base, because I just see those as gifts. Like, we have all been given this unique personality, and culture needs that. Like, we need you. Yes. We need you at your best. And if you don't even entertain that or get curious about that, then we're missing out. And your kids are missing out, and your husband's missing out, or your partner. And, you know, there's just so much to it.
Yeah, we miss out so much when we're not giving our best selves, right? And you're missing, I think the greatest I think that the greatest like sadness in me is that women miss out on what they truly can be, right? Or even their thoughts about themselves. And it's like, no, I had I struggled with an eating disorder for a really long time from when I was a little kid. And I think about the life that I lived when I had my bad eating disorder. And it was like, I could walk into a room and I could size myself up to everybody in that room, right? I could be like, okay, well, I'm skinnier than that person, this person. And it was such a horrible, horrible way of living. And that was even before social media. And so I think about social media now, and I think about women who are not happy with themselves. It like makes me tear up because you get onto these platforms where you're seeing everybody putting their highlight reels on there. And what are you doing? Because you don't feel whole because you haven't taken care of yourself. You're then comparing yourselves as you scroll and you're like, oh, well, so-and-so's doing this. And like, oh, so-and-so looks happy. And it's not uplifting you at all.
Yeah.
And like, I think that when we get into a really healthy place and when we are really whole with ourselves, then I think social media is great. But I think it's a really tragic thing for women, for kids, for all of us to get on that and to go into this hole of like this comparison of how great somebody else's life is.
I think that's so true. And I can think of an Instagram influencer that I know who is, she's this mom and she's dynamic, and it seems like she's traveling all the times with her kids. She does tons of service and outreach, and it's so inspiring in a lot of ways. And I've read through the comments out of curiosity, and it seems so polarized. Like some people are either, you're amazing, thank you for doing what you're doing, or the comments are really mean, like, well, maybe you should spend more time with your kids, or maybe that wouldn't happen if you'd been paying attention to the right things. I guess maybe I don't want to go into too much of why we do that, but how do we not do that? How do we take the good?
Yeah.
Without taking a hit to ourselves, without saying like, well, I'm not as good as them.
I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I literally think it starts with like loving yourself, right? Everything starts with loving ourselves. If we don't love ourselves, we can't love anybody else. And so we're always going to be looking at something from a lens of like, we're not enough. And so therefore we're going to judge somebody from that realm. Yeah. But I think that when we start to like really be whole and really feel like I am living the life that I meant to live.
Yeah.
That is when our judgments, that's when we can look at people and say, oh, this is amazing that this person's putting all of this stuff out there into the universe. And think about all the things also that like, we also have to remember that we don't know the back end, right? We don't know the support systems that are in place. We don't know these things. So as we look at these people online, right? As we look at influencers and we think like, oh, their life looks so great. Or, I'm going to toss a judgment at you. Really what that needs to do is we just need to look at ourselves and sit with ourselves and say, why am I reacting that way? What is the work that I haven't done? I think that the greatest work that we will do out of anything, it's not in our home. It's not in the workplace. It's in ourselves.
Yeah.
If we do the work in ourselves very first, then all the other stuff is going to work out.
Well, gosh, can you imagine a world where just everyone was healthy?
Seriously, right? I mean, so many problems. So many problems to be taken away.
Yes. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get there someday, but we're all in process too, aren't we? I feel like I've worked so hard on doing so much work, and I still have those gut reactions. For sure. And I have learned to do that a little bit better, to look and be like, wow, why did I just react? Like what she's doing is perfectly fine. Why do this actually happened to me recently with this influencer that she got on her Insta story and she was like super big and super happy and like, oh my gosh. And my instant reaction was, okay, like calm it down a notch. Like you don't need to be so big. And I caught myself and I was like, why do I care?
Yeah.
That is maybe her natural personality. Like maybe she's just a really fun, bubbly person. Yeah. Why do I care?
Yeah.
I'm happy with who I am, so I don't have to be like that if I don't want to be like that. So catching ourselves and being able to say like, why did that get me? Well, because I'm jealous that she, whatever. Like I don't have to care. Like it's great. Good for you. Happy you found yourself. And if it's not yourself, if it's not authentic and you're being a total imposter, like I wish you well.
Totally.
I'm fine.
Well, and I think that that's like one thing, because I also think it goes the other way of like so many people are like, oh, but what if so-and-so thinks this of me? Yeah. I have always said like, okay, it's none of our business what other people think about us, right? People are thinking about us zero. Yeah. We always think that like, oh no, well somebody's going to think this about me or this about me. Like what if I go and people think I'm selfish because I'm doing this career? Listen, it's none of our business, what people think about us, as long as we are like proud of what we're doing.
Exactly.
That is all that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
And it can be so much easier to care what other people think instead of to ask ourselves, what do you really think? I think it's easy to be like, well, you don't have a say in my life, but to actually stop and look at yourself and say, what do I really want? Like that can be way more vulnerable. that to do this work we're talking about, to really stop and say, what do I want, can feel really scary and feel really vulnerable. And thank goodness for the people, the women especially, who have been brave and who have bucked the system and who have said, you know, I have something inside me that is worth offering and I need to put it out there to the universe.
If our world was just as homogenous, you know, these are the roles that we each play. These are the roles that we need to do. If that's what our world was like, it would be such a boring world. And and we wouldn't have all the different ideas and dimensions of different things.
And to bring it back to that kind of the way that I think of intellectual wellness is, you know, what are we studying and what are our brains and what is our skill set and what is our kind of like what you said, like, what did you enjoy as a child? Like, what unique talents and gifts and skills do you have to offer and how do you best do that? I think can feel better to some women than like, what do you want?
Yes.
And they're like, well, that's so selfish. Who cares what I want? Like, no, what is best? Yeah. What is the best part of you that you can bring to the world? And what is the right way, the best way for you to bring it to the world? And it can change tomorrow and it can change next month and it can change in 10 years. And what an amazing thing that is for us.
Yeah. Another thing that women can do is think about those things that your friends are always saying, like, oh, will you please do this? Like, I have a friend.
Yes.
I am terrible at like design. Like, I am not organized, right? I am great. If you want me to put together a business plan or like get up and speak to a crowd of 10,000, I can do that. But if you want me to like be organized or like, you know, like design like no way, I don't know how to do that. And so that's like, think about that. Like, what are those things that people always come to you and say like, oh, hey, will you help me like organize my house? Or will you help me like make this decision? Like, oh, you put clothes together so well, you know, like, what are those things that your friends are always asking you? Because those are typically the things that like, oh, well, maybe that's something that I can do for a career. I have a great friend who she is incredibly organized, and she was like, oh, maybe I could turn this into a career. And she launched a like home organization business, and it's super successful. You know, it just took that one thing of like, oh, well, my friends always ask me to like organize their houses. Great.
We are so often drawn to our competitive sides instead of our supportive sides. And it's this idea of scarcity. Like, well, if you're doing that, then I can't do it. Well, shoot, now what am I going to do? Like, I wish you hadn't done that. And you're doing it so well and I'll never do it as well. Or like, I could do that way better than you. Just all of this competitive nature that we see when we're, I think, insecure, right? Like when we're not sure of ourselves. So how do we create or come at things from a place of more support for each other? Like, how do we support each other, especially as women, in a world that feels so like exclusive? Like, if you do it, well, then I can't do it.
I think the biggest thing we can remember is that there is room for you too.
Yeah.
Each one of us is our own unique beings, right? And so the way that I do something is going to be totally different than the way that you do something.
Yes.
And that's what makes us all different, right? Yes. And that's why the world needs all of us, is because if we all were doing something the same way that Mallory, like, well, no, we have to do it all the way that Mallory does it, then the world's going to miss out, right? It goes back to like, if we don't do us, like then the world misses out. And so just remember that there is room for you too, that there may be lots of competitors, but nobody's going to do it just like you. Yeah. And so it's bringing that unique. And that's why I think it's so important to really tap into like who you are and what you really want to be. Like touching back on like what we talked about earlier, is that it is so important for you to be true to you, because when you're true to you, you put that out into the world, and that's what the world's going to resonate with. And so really make sure that like who we are and those questions that we're asking ourselves are bringing us closer to that person of being like, no, I feel like I am all of me.
Yes.
And the world needs me, because the world does need us, right? The world needs all of us. The world doesn't need cookie cutters. The world doesn't need all of us doing the exact same thing and dressing the exact same way and, you know, on and on and on. The world needs our color and our, you know, it's not black and white. Like, it needs all of us.
You know, I am still so much in this journey of fear and vulnerability and trying to be true to myself, but also trying to stay true to the other obligations. So I think when we talk about it, it can seem very simple, like, well, just go do it. Yeah. You know, you do you. And it can seem really simple. And I know it's hard.
Yeah.
And I know it's scary, but we have to keep doing that work. We have to keep edging into that discomfort, so that, because the world does need you.
Well, and remember that you're not alone. You know, I think oftentimes we can think like, oh, well, if I do this, like, no, you're not alone. And I think that when we actually start to talk about these things, you know, I think that's what vulnerability does. Yeah. It connects us in a different way. So we actually start to vocalize like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not feeling whole, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. And you start to vocalize that to a few of your friends, or you listen to this podcast and you send Mallory a message and you say, Mallory, you know, thank you so much. I am really afraid about this, but like, that's how we connect. And that's actually how we like build a better world, is that we are able to take down our guard. We're able to say like, okay, this might be scary, but we're going to connect on a deeper level like that.
Gosh, I love that. So let's be willing to show our fears and our weaknesses and reach out to other people because it also supports them.
Totally. Yes.
I think that we were going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, and I don't think we have a ton of time, but I do think there is that idea of we think that they're doing amazing.
Yes.
We think that they are full of confidence and never second guess themselves. And the further I move into sort of the business world, the more you recognize like literally every person started from nowhere.
Yes.
Like every person had to figure out how to make their first dollar and how to do their first scary thing. And like no one is sitting there not second guessing themselves at some point along the way. And so by recognizing that and by being vulnerable, that person that we think is just amazing and has no doubt is suddenly like, oh, thank you so much for saying that. I've been so nervous. I've been so insecure. And thank you. That meant so much to hear that you're also insecure. So we as women can be so much more supportive of each other.
Yes, that's really how we get over imposter syndrome, right? I mean, I remember, again, being like, throughout my life, it's like, no, you just got to fake it till you make it. And quite honestly, so many people are just faking it until they make it.
Yes.
Right?
Tell me more about that. Like, how do we do it? Because I've heard a lot of people say, well, yeah, I mean, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't
You
apply to
say
me.
yes, and then you figure it out. Literally, like, and that sounds so simple. And that is truly like what I've done. When they asked me to withdraw from school, I was in my senior year of college, and they said, hey, we need you to travel on the torch relay as the Olympic spokesperson. I'm like, yes. I had no clue. I was 20 years old, right? Like, what in the world was I doing traveling around the country?
Yeah.
I said yes. When they asked me to be the director of marketing, at the age of 23, I had no clue what I was doing, but I just said yes. And then you figure it out. So have the courage to say yes and then know that it's going to figure itself out. Listen, everybody's imposters. Truly, quite honestly. I mean, I think we're all just like trying to like play this game. And I think that the difference is that women, this is like a huge difference between women and men, right? And I noticed this because I, again, worked in a room full of men. 90% of my career was with all men.
Yeah.
And men operate from an ecosystem. So they're always going to act as if they know the answers.
Yeah.
They don't question themselves. They may only know 50% of the answer, but they're going to act like they know everything. Whereas women, we feel like we have to check the box on 100% of things before we even throw our hat into the ring or before we even like put our voice out there. Like, no, we need to start operating a little bit of like, okay, let's just pretend, you know what? Let's just fake this until we make it. And then that's where it's great to have this network of women, right? That's like this network of women where it's like, Mallory, okay, I just took this leap, but I don't know what the next step is. And when we have that supportive community and when we have that village, because that's really what it is like this village of like incredible women who are all just like lifting each other up.
Yes.
That's where we get rid of our imposter syndrome and we feel more supported.
Well, and because I would say like, oh, I've totally been there. Don't even worry about it. I'll help you. I'll help you to the next step is so great. And I think kind of tying it all up, if you go back to what is right for you and best for you, and you are in tune with your innate qualities and the things that make you so innately and beautifully you, then when the scary thing comes that you're going to fake it till you make it, you have at least a little bit of direction behind you to say, I don't know how to do that, but I know it's part of who I am.
Yes.
Like, I know that's the direction that I want to go. And if it seems in conflict with who you are, then maybe that's the time that you do say no. And you say, that's not the direction. Like, that would be a great opportunity, but it doesn't really get me the direction that I want to go. Yeah. But this over here would be great. So
we have to practice it, right? Because that's the thing is that like the more that we practice that, the more we put ourselves out there, the more we like are kind of, it's like building our muscles, right?
Yeah.
I always say it's like flexing that courage muscle. Like just like we work out and just like we, I can't go run a marathon tomorrow. No, I have to like build up to that. Yeah. And it's the same way with like taking these little steps, right? Just flex that muscle because then it's going to be like, oh yeah, our courage muscle remembers that like, oh, we tried this before. Yeah. I put myself out there. Okay, maybe it didn't go as bad as what I thought. And so it just is like continuously trying and trying and trying. And that's what sticks. And that's what helps us. Probably the same stuff that we say to our kids. You know, like we tell our kids, like, no, you got to try it. You know what? You may not be great at it at first, but you're going to try. And I think we should give that same message to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, okay, let's just have the courage to try.
And you look for that little proof, that like, I did that and it worked.
Yes.
So then you go for the bigger proof and the bigger proof.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Yeah. So now I run a skincare company. So when I left Powder Corp, when I left the ski industry, my whole thing when I left was I knew that my value was helping female entrepreneurs. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to help women step into their own power because I saw so many women around me who weren't. And so I actually met Denise Cartwright, who owned Crude Personal Care. It's microbiome friendly skincare. And she and I met 2 weeks after I had given my notice. And she and I started working together. And now we have a great business. So you can go to livecrude.com. It's all microbiome friendly skincare. So it's skincare that helps support your skin's systems. It's like getting rid of the beauty industry of like what they tell us we need to do. It's a simple system. All you need is like let nature heal itself, right? Our skin like knows what to do. It's like the same thing with us, right? We typically always know what to do, but it's when we take these other messages in, that's what kind of gets us furthest away. So our skincare company is really back to that. We actually have a blog called The School of Unlearning, and it's because we want to help people unlearn all these things that we've been taught, whether it's about the way that we need to like what we need to do on our skin, what we need to do like with soap, all of those things. So so it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of success and a lot of growth. And it's just been so incredible to, again, be like a women-owned, women-run business and seeing success in that way.
That's great. So if people want to reach out to you, do you have any sort of direct contact they can contact you
Yes,
with?
please. You can find me all places. So my name is Krista Parry, Krista Parry. You can literally find me across all platforms on that. Please, you can email me at Krista@livecrude.com.
And that's livecrude, C-R-U-D-E.
C-R-U-D-E. Yep. Livecrude. But I would love to help, support, cheer you on. I love connecting with people.
So great.
But I am such a big supporter of like helping women to find their wholeness and find themselves. And I think the work you're doing here is such a big part of that. It's like we just have to give women. It goes back to that, like, right, that intellectual wellness. If they can be listening to podcasts like this that are allowing them to think differently or having them have different ideas of what they could be, that's what hopefully is going to create a world where we're much happier.
Gosh, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, so I love it. You're on your way.
Thank you so much, Krista.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and come back next time for another episode. And remember, this information is for education only and not intended to be medical advice.